Okay, so exponents. Not a new concept, hopefully. An exponent shows repeated multiplication. An exponent shows repeated multiplication. The exponent is the tiny number in the top right corner. Right? Exponents are tiny little numbers, and they're raised up to the side of a number. Exponents show repeated multiplication. If something has an exponent of 4, it means it's that number times itself 4 times. So if I give you an example of an exponent, what's the exponent in this? The 6. The 6 is the exponent, correct? Yeah, because it's the tiny little number. The exponent is 6. Do you know what the whole thing is called? 2 to the 6th? It's called a power. The whole thing is called a power. Because you could say 2 to the 6th power, or 2 to the power of 6, right? The whole thing is called a power. Do you know what the 2 would be called? The base. Good. The big number is the base. The little number is the exponent. And the whole thing is called a power. Landon, do you have a question?
Why are, if it's like a 2 or a 3, why is it called squared or cubed? But if it's like a 4, it's called just to the 4th power.
Because they gave those two numerical names, because a square, right?
Two-dimensional.
A square, same side times same side, 4 times 4. So it's 4 squared, right? And a cube is a three-dimensional square, so it's the number times the number times the number, so it's cubed.
But then why is it 4th?
Because there's no 4th dimension.
Why? Because they're in it.
So let's define these. Powers have 2 parts. Powers have 2 parts, and you guys just told me that the exponent is the little number. The power has 2 parts. There's the exponent, which is the little number, and the base, which is the big number. And you know that the big number, the base, gets multiplied. The biggest misconception that students do, they start going too fast. And they say that 2 to the power of 6, or 2 to the 6th, is 12. Because on accident, they do 2 times 6. Instead of 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Right? You have to do repeated multiplication. There are a few times where the base and the exponent, when you do the power correctly, sometimes you accidentally get the right right, the answer if you do base times exponent. Like if this was 3 to the first power, well, 3 to the first power is 3. And sometimes students see that and they're like, oh, well, I'll just do the base times the exponent and it'll be right. Well, not always, right? Sometimes. If it's a 1, it'll always be right. But every other combo, you have to do that repeated multiplication.
What about 2 times 2?
So 2 squared is an exception to the rule. Because 2 to the power of 2 is 4. And that works out there. But if you did 2 to the power of 3, it wouldn't work, right?
Or it's like anything times itself is to get the same.
So do not fall into that trap of saying, oh, it's just the base times the exponent. That's not true. It's the base times itself this many times. Let's fill out. So let's talk expanded form. Expanded form. What does it mean to expand something? Make it bigger, right? We're not going to use, so there are no exponents in expanded form. It's the whole thing. So if I said write this in expanded form, or even write this without exponents, if I said write 4 to the 5th in expanded form or without exponents or the whole thing, I would write 4 times 4 times 4 times 4. If it said simplify, you'd write the answer. Simplify means make it easier. No one in the history of the world has ever said, oh my goodness, when I am 6 squared years old, this is my plan. Right? No one goes around speaking that way. If it says simplify, that means make it easier. And you would say to yourself, if this said simplify 4 to the 5th power, if it said simplify, you wouldn't write 4 to the 5th power. You'd actually figure out the solution, the answer to 4 to the 5th power. Simplify means to find the answer. Expanded means write it with no variables. I have a question for you now. What about this? What would that be, Natasha? Could I write it in parentheses instead of using the dot?
Yeah.
Same thing, right?
Because if 2 numbers touching you multiply it.
3, 4, 5, 6.
You must have a lot of X's.
I realize what he just said. Who says it must have a lot of X's?
Okay. So we're at this point, right? Now here's the trick. This is the new part. Or maybe the new part. We'll see. Okay? Write this down. Just write it down. It says, what is the difference between negative 2 to the 4th and negative 2 to the 4th? Because when I read them, they're the same thing.
There's a difference.
What is the difference between negative 2 to the 4th and negative 2 to the 4th? let's try it just before we even do anything. Let's test it in our calculators. Grab the calculator. Because if I, in my calculator, type -2, remember the negative sign is down here, -2, and then I do my exponent of 4. Exponent is this button right here, the caret button. You can. So again, you can do -2 and then you can press squared. And then go back and change it to a 4.
But the other way is way easier.
I mean, it's the same number of button pushes. So you're going to do -2 to the 4th, and I'm going to press enter, and I get -16. And then, so -2 to the 4th equals -16. And this one says -2 to the 4th. Do you agree? This says -2 to the 4th, and I got -16 as my answer. This one says -2 to the 4th. Let's type it. -2 to the 4th. Carly, does yours say syntax error? It's because you used the minus sign instead of the negative sign. Yep. And you get a different answer.
It's positive, not negative.
So we're going to talk about the difference. Because there is a difference. However, if you say -2 to the 4th and -2 to the 4th, they're the same problem. But they have different answers, and here's why. The difference is what? Parentheses. Ladies and gentlemen, here is the new piece of information that you have to tuck away in your brain. The exponent belongs to what it touches. The exponent belongs to what it touches. The exponent belongs to what it touches. So ignore the first example, -2 to the 4th, and look at the second example of -2 to the 4th. What does the 4, the exponent, touch? It touches the parentheses, meaning the parentheses happen 4 times. Meaning -2, because that's one set of parentheses. -2, that's 2 sets of parentheses. -2, that's 3 sets of parentheses. And -2, that's 4 sets of parentheses. -2 to the 4th, if -2 is inside parentheses, means the parentheses repeat 4 times. Over here on -2 to the 4th, what does the exponent of 4 touch? It only touches the 2. So that means the 2 repeats 4 times, and that negative just goes in front. The exponent only belongs to what it touches. So we're going to write in expanded form. We're going to condense and expand some stuff, okay? 5x to the 3rd. Can you expand that? Can you write that with no exponents? Can you expand 5x to the 3rd? What does the exponent touch?
The X.
It only touches the x, correct?
Yeah.
So I'm going to write 1, 2, 3. And then what do I do with this 5?
You put it in front of all the X's.
I just bring it down.
Wow.
If I had 5x to the third, again, it said the same way. The first way, I read this as 5x to the third. This one, I read as 5x to the third. They sound the same, except they're different. Because this 5x to the third means 5x, x, x. This one means 5x, 5x, and 5x. Because the parentheses, the exponent touches the parentheses, meaning that the parentheses repeat, not just the x. All right, so let's go backwards. Can you write that? Can you simplify? Can you make that easier? Well, I can't tell you the answer, but I could make that easier. I could write that with exponents, couldn't I?
Yeah.
What? How would you write this with exponents? Natasha?
-2, a to the third, and b to the fifth.
Good. Because there's 3 a's. A times a times a could be a to the third.
And then b times b to the fifth.
B to the fifth.
Yeah, there's 5 b's. Oh, I can't tell.
I just simplified it. I made it easier. I don't know the answer. I mean, if they said A was 1 and B was 10, I could figure it out, right? It would be a big number. All right, try this one. -4 times 3 times x times x times x times y times y times t times t times t times t. Wow.
Okay, so
How can I rewrite this? Okay, Landon, tell me.
I think it's -4 and then like the parentheses 3, then
Okay.
x to the third power.
And then there were 1, 2, 3, so x.
X to the third.
Okay.
And then y squared
Okay.
power. And then t to the fourth power.
I think that is a start.
What? I'm not right. Dang it, that sucks.
Because Landon, did you know you owed me -4 times 3?
Oh.
Can you do something else in this problem?
No.
You could do -7.
-4 times 3.
Oh, hold up.
-12. And then I'm going to take it even a step further and I'm going to tell you, well, let's leave it this way. X to the third, y squared, and t to the fourth. In algebra, you're going to learn something about your variables, but we'll leave this for now since this is the first day.
Well, now I want to know. I don't.
Exponents.
You should tell us.
Exponents. Remember,
Yeah.
this is the new part. The exponent only belongs to what it touches.